Today, we have more on the Great Reset, Bolo wrap equipment, and much, much more coming right up. Welcome to Black Spring on your Friday. This is another flash stream brought to you by Black Spring with Autumn. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I hope you're doing well and you are walking into your weekend well. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. If you are out there, if you're thinking about coming in, if you will do your due diligence on the housekeeping measure that we call here and just hit that like button or that unlike button, or if you dare to share and throw caution to the wind, that's even better. But also if you could just make sure that you're still subscribed, to the channel, and that all works out great. And just a tidbit on that, it seems that later, I'm not sure, within the coming weeks, there will be the 4 CEOs of the major big tech, if you will. The 4 big tech CEOs will be appearing before the Judiciary Committee. And of course, we'll keep an eye on that and see what that looks like, because it looks like even Jim Jordan made a statement on Fox News or one of the affiliate or the affiliate channels regarding the conservative censorship and whether it be Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, the whole 9 yard. But once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And if you're out there, we'd also like to take an opportunity to say thank you to the loyal subscribers and you, the actual patron. So shout out to Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, The Angel Munez Variety Show, Gary L. Young Keys Jr., Chrysler Imperial H, and a special shout out to Cold War Jesus. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. And hopefully I'll be bringing some more items and some more not only support items to the channel, but some other opportunities that'll be exclusive to you because you are loyal subscribers and patrons on the channel. So I really do appreciate you guys, but we'll go ahead and get kicked off. This is going to be a bit of an abbreviated stream, but no less. There's always tons out there. So what we're going to start with is just a little bit of something that I've wanted to get into before, and it's going to be in reference to, it's actually going to be more of a device or something like what can I say? Maybe a law enforcement item or an equipment I think that they're going to be adding to, I guess, police, we'll find out more about that specifically, but I've heard of the item or the device before. Also, guys, please keep an eye out on your community tab as well as your Patreon community tab. I appreciate you guys for being here, for all of your support. So we'll jump right in just a moment. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Hope you're doing well on your Friday. So the first thing we'll do, we'll jump around a little bit, but let's just go ahead and have a look at something that I've referred to before from a different source. And it's going to be the Great Reset. And, we do these things here. I bring these things to the channel because I think it helps with, it just puts things a little bit in perspective and gives you a better scale of the pieces, because you see, you notice that there's all these pieces and all these fragments that we deal with, and you may not be sure where they're from, or make the connection. So that's what I aim to do, that to bring a bit more connections to some of the things that we see, not just cultural things, but they're actual agendas that are already in place. These are not it's not a trend or something that's an acute, something that's, a development, or something that's in a wave pattern. Not everything comes in waves. I will say that. Shout out to Garrett Reed. Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. I know this is a flash stream. I really appreciate you guys. Shout out to Luciano. Thank you guys so much for coming in. So let's go ahead and hop right over to this, the Great Reset. And we're going to be taking the Great Reset this time from, we're going to take the Great Reset from the vetted source, the TNA this time, but it's no less. We'll do a little bit of exploration on the UN Agenda 2030, which I have done several videos in reference to the UN Agenda 2030, and there again, there's more context, and there's more scale of all of the things that of many of these things that we see. And even, it prepares you for some of the things that are unspoken, the things that the language is evasive about in our society, whether it's in media, whether it's the politicians' speeches. This language has already been broken down. It was broken down in the 40s and 50s, but I wasn't around during that time. But books. Thankfully, the books are still available. So thanks so much, guys, for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I'm going to take you to that clip right now. So I'm going to do some paraphrasing in here. I'll jump around just a little bit, but it's nice for you to get it, you'll have something that you can follow or that you can read. So according to, this is coming from the vetted source TNA, the UN-backed, quote, Great Reset, end quote, to usher in a new world order. You can say it. You can say it on this channel. This is written by Alex Newman. Now, according to this, I will paraphrase, but I'll be in and out a little bit on this. But get ready for a lot less freedom and prosperity and a lot more government, at least if the elites get their way. Okay, so it says, after greatly supporting the coronavirus lockdowns that crushed the economy and funding, and championing the terrorizing of populations with riots over supposed inequality, the deep state globalists are stepping in to offer their proposed, quote, solution, end quote, to the crisis they themselves unleashed, a, quote, Great Reset, to transform the world and everything in it, supposedly for the benefit of the masses, but really for the benefit of the ruling classes. Okay, so here they break down some of the top leaders, what I call technocrats, the former, I call this technocracy. So here I am, I'm doing some summarizing, but at the same time, these are terms that you've heard me use before, but this is just iterations. I should rename my channel Iterations, Black Spring Iterations, because it seems to be where I tend to be. So shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Thank you so much. Okay, so it says top leaders of big business, big globalism, and big government worldwide, including royalty and mass murdering communist tyrants, are jumping on the bandwagon. But even before the scheme is fully outlined and understood, resistance is growing quickly. The brainchild of the World Economic Forum, a globalist group of powerful deep state elites that meets every year in the Swiss ski resort town of Davos. The, quote, Great Reset, end quote, aims to fundamentally re-engineer industries, societies, education, agriculture, and more. See, there you go. We're talking about these, we're getting into the technocrats, technocracy, the sustainability that we've talked about, that even, even some of my associates have talked about the sustainability. Its advocates are openly saying as much, with WEF boss Klaus Schwab declaring, quote, all aspects of our societies and economies, end quote, need to be, quote, revamped, end quote. Even, quote, our thinking and behavior, we will have to dramatically shift, he said. A WEF, that's World Economic Forum, statement marketing the controversial scheme also calls for a, quote, new social contract, end quote, centered on, end quote, on, quote, social justice, end quote. Now, according to this, quote, every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed, end quote, added Schwab, calling for even stronger, quote, stronger and more effective, end quote, government. Quote, we must build entirely new foundations for our economic and social systems, end quote, and there is no other choice but to submit, he and others declared. Now, if that's not an elite speaking to you, I don't know what is. I mean, that's pretty, I use the word, I throw the word pure around. That's pure elitism. That's a master, somebody that thinks of themselves as a master of the universe, or somebody that I said has a God complex, whether when it comes to sociological perspectives and economics, and people that are below them, or which they consider they know what's best. Okay, so here, now a little bit of a video for you. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Garrett Reed, I'm going to read a couple comments before I play this. I appreciate you guys for coming in at the 11th hour. Got a lot to get to, so I'm just read a few comments. Garrett says, I remember the New World Order was supposed to be 16-year plan, Obama, then Hillary, but because our president won't, they have pushed it back to 2030. Chrysler says, first time I heard of New World Order was President H.W. Bush. Same here, Chrysler Imperial H. And Garrett Reese says, I've also read that they want to use the UN to come and take everyone's guns. So we're going to get to that, even if I have to do another segment. I feel like this one's kind of loaded. So I'm going to move quickly because I've got about 45 minutes and I'll have to stop. But thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So let's have a little bit of this hashtag, the Great Reset.
We have an incredible opportunity to create entirely new sustainable industries, investing in nature as the true engine of our economy.
The current global crisis has disrupted every aspect of our lives, but it has also presented us with an extraordinary opportunity, a chance to reset and accelerate efforts to improve the state of our world.
Changing our current trajectory will require bold and imaginative action, together with determination and decisive leadership. In order to secure our future and to prosper, we need to evolve our economic model, putting people and planet at the heart of global value creation. If there is one critical lesson we have to learn from this crisis, we need to put nature at the heart of how we operate. We are on the verge of catalytic breakthroughs that will alter our view of what is possible and profitable within the framework of a sustainable future. We need nothing short of a paradigm shift, one that inspires action at revolutionary levels and pace. We simply cannot waste any more time. The only limit is our willingness to act. And the time to act is now.
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. You know, it's kind of I give them an A on the effort, on the visual, and even on the rhetoric there. But shout out to everybody in the stream. Shout out to Console Fix. Thank you so much. From Las Vegas. Thank you so much. Appreciate you for coming in. Shout out to Luciano, Chrysler Imperial H, and Garrett Reed. And also, if you guys could do your diligence and hit that like button or unlike button, and share, or make sure you're still subscribed. I'm not sure in what order would I say. Probably make sure you're still subscribed. Yeah, we'll keep that in a rotation, and we'll keep looping that. I do apologize, but I'll get back to this part of the article. But there again, I have drawn quite a bit on the World Economic Forum before, because, you know, there again, there's plenty of context, and there's plenty of you can put names with faces. You don't have to imagine, you know, what type of human being, or if I go into newspeak, what type of mankind or humankind thinks of themselves as a master of the universe, or you know, or projects their own ideas onto the entire world, or their ideologies rather. So thanks so much, guys, for coming in. So I'll get back to that article, and we'll go a little bit into a World Economic Forum, just a little bit on that. I'd like to get into some other things that you might find, I don't know, maybe paradoxically, you know, you might find some amusement and get some education at the same time. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So I'll take you back to that article on the unbacked. That's UN backed. Pretty clever, huh? UN backed, unbacked. I'm just thinking this, to me, I think survival in a situation like this certainly requires, you know, the language, getting around the language. So here again, we have businesses and economic changes will be massive. And of course, that was reiterated by Schwab in that video. And let's see what else we're going to do. Okay, so according to this, the changes will be systematic to, quote, the COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century, end quote. The WEF leader said in a speech about the Great Reset last month, calling a change in, quote, mindsets and, quote, most important issue. Quote, now is a historical moment, the time, not only to fight the virus, but to shape the system for the post-corona era. Now, if you guys, I submit these things are linked. In fact, but when I look at the language on the World Economic Forum, it's almost they've assigned a human or personified the coronavirus. You know, it's almost, you know, the coronavirus walked in, or the coronavirus appeared, or don't you let the coronavirus expand inequalities. I mean, I don't know, you know, call me crazy, but I'll keep going here. I'll get through this really quickly here. So yes, of course, Schwab is doing his diligence to sell to the elites, to sell to the UN. And of course, you know, they're trying to check boxes, or, you know, this whole thing is, many of the capitalists, they think for them to be, if they're in alignment with climate change, these kinds of things are coming up that you're starting to hear out of Joe Biden and his platform. I think they're going to be profitable in this whole Green New Deal. And I'll go on to the next part of this. So jumping around a little bit, it talks about here, the globalists have been throwing the term, quote, fourth industrial revolution, end quote, around for years now. In 2016, Schwab explained that this, quote, revolution, end quote, would, quote, fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another, end quote. The transformation. Where else have we heard the word transformation being thrown around? We've heard that from Barack Obama. We've heard that from Joe Biden. We're going to hear it even more. I've asked you guys, what does the transformation look like for America? What does it look like? Okay, what are they talking about? Okay, so here it says the transformation, he continued, would be, quote, unlike anything humankind has experienced before, quote, bringing together, end quote, all stakeholders of the global polity. Okay, so you understand that this is what I'm talking about, the language of these things. They are basically changing the way people think. They're doing their due diligence on thought reform, and that also means that you have no political freedom. You have no intellectual freedom. You use the word humankind instead of the word mankind. Instead of girlfriend or boyfriend, you use the word partner. Yeah, this is very 1984 kinds of jargon that I'm throwing out here. Shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to keep going here. I've got more stimulating things to get to. So, because we've heard many of these things before, because I do spend quite a bit of time on the UN. And I've spent a lot of time, getting around that, and it's just filling in now. It's just a matter of just everything is, and we are not. The U.S. is a threat because the U.S. and Trump has knocked them off target. I think with a Hillary presidency and this next 4 years was going to put them where they wanted to be. And right now, they'll move heaven and earth and everything else in between to keep that from happening. They'll move space. They'll move anything even below, below earth to remove him. But here we go. Here we have the same rhetoric coming from Schwab and the WEF, and is found in the key UN agreements that are serving as the foundation of the emerging New World Order. There, I said it again, New World Order. And UN Agenda 2030, also known as the Sustainable Development Goals, end quote. Every national government and dictatorship on earth agree to very similar dictates. In goal number 10, for instance, the UN and its members pledge to, quote, reduce inequality within and among countries. Now, where does that come from? Where are you hearing about inequality? To do that, the agreement continues, will, quote, only be possible if wealth is what? Shared, and income equality is addressed, end quote. As the UN document also makes clear, national socialism to quote, combat inequality, end quote, domestically is not enough. International socialism is needed to battle inequality, even, quote, among, end quote, countries by 2030, ensure that all men and women, in particular the poor and the vulnerable, have equal rights to economic resources. The document demands sound suspiciously like the WEF, the Great Reset Manifesto. Okay, so more, the UN document also calls governments to seize control over, quote, production and consumption. It prescribes government-controlled healthcare systems for all, too. And it demands that children be, quote, educated, end quote, to the point that they do not just agree with the ideology underpinning the scheme, but are actually prepared to, quote, promote, end quote, it. Goal number 4, the so-called education, end quote, will be the key to achieving all the others, as the UN has admitted on many occasions. So there again, there's the indoctrination. There's a hypersexuality component to the education. There is also a bit of a disdain in illustrative production of publications that they're putting out. Having kids to, I can show you that later. And of course, you guys are free to go on to UN.org at your leisure. But here again, there's no mystery here. And that's why I've said many times, and many people are saying, it's better, okay, we're withdrawing from the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, which is an organization parented by the UN. We should withdraw from the UN. It makes sense because I don't know at what point did, of course, the UN was established around 45, and I think it was the namesake came from FDR, but the goals of the UN do not reflect anything of American values or culture at all. It's actually quite dark. So here again, I'm not going to lecture you on UN Agenda 2030 or 21. You can see that at your own leisure. I just thought you might hear something a bit of the world from the World Economic Forum, as well as and see how these things kind of fit together. So yeah, I think those things kind of fit. They don't fit together, but also, of course, in many of these companies, they're doing social, they have social investing, and all of these things are part of the elite and their plans and the sustainability that they are using. These words are interchangeable. So I think it's an article chocked full of things. Maybe I'll read a couple more lines and then I'll move on to the next. It's actually kind of cross-referencing another place that I wanted to go, but also, of course, we would eventually get into the whole the technocracy and the microchipping and the whole thing with Bill Gates and the ID 40, which is going to also have your certificate of vaccination would be included in that. It's a ton of stuff. In fact, Gates has been working on, Gates has been running under the auspices of human rights and all these things for years. His whole philanthropy has been under the umbrella of human rights. And of course, he's got friends all over the world that have already piloted programs. They're already testing these things on the people of India. Yes, I'm not sure who's been chipped in the name, in the fashion that I'm seeing or that I've researched, but it's possible that somebody's already implementing that technology already. So there's this is a heavy, it's a thick article, but it's no less. There's plenty of value in here. And around here, you got to dig deep for the truth, and that's what you have to do. Okay, so here again, it talks about, quote, a great reset is necessary to build a new social contract that honors the dignity of every human being, end quote. Continued Schwab, once again using empty Marxist-style rhetoric to build support for the very policies that always and everywhere strip individuals of their dignity and free agency. I quote, the global health crisis has laid bare the unsustainability of our old systems in terms of social cohesion, the lack of equal opportunities and inclusiveness. So yes, because I did here again, I'm going back to another video, which, you hear Sanders and all of these politicians, they talk about human rights and, everybody should have free this and free that. And, same thing with the whole concept of the chip, of the ID chip and the vaccinations. Oh, well, we need to provide, IDs for people because they're mobile and they migrate. And all of this is just so, it's not just the politics and the language that's the enemy of the people. These technocrats, these CEOs, they are a part of that. There's profit for them in all of their philanthropy. It's not that they care so deeply about the people of India and what they have, their have and have nots, the class and the class less. It's control. It's control. When you have that much access to identities and just just having that much, who needs that much power? Who can be trusted with that much power? It's human nature is always there. It's never, we sometimes we think about You have to think of the effects of something versus the intent, or vice versa. I think there's a quote, and if I get it wrong, then you can fact check it, load your fact checker. But I think, what was it? Was it Dr. Sowell, Thomas Sowell says, or it's a quote that he gave. I'm not sure if he's the originator of this, but he says, what was the road to hell was paved not only with good intentions, but usually when something has great intent, when somebody has a great intent and it goes wrong, it's usually somebody from Harvard is usually standing right in the middle of it. So I can see that. Oh, shout out to Derek C. Williams, and shout out to Cold War Jesus. Thank you guys so much for coming in. This is a flash stream. I know it's not, I don't know. You've been to a flash sale before. You've seen a flash dance. I'm not saying that this is measuring up to those expectations, but hey, that's what I'm calling it. So thank you guys so much for coming in. And I'm going to read a comment here from Cold War Jesus. Says, all of this is absolutely alien to our constitution and way of life. They're trying to turn our country into the world into one large ant colony. Yes, I'm saying they're trying to turn it into a prison planet in my mind, because you're not making people, when you're doing all of this, when these elites are pulling strings and we're playing by their rules, they don't have any idea of what our lives are like. They're not. I don't know that life. I don't know the life of an elite, and I don't pretend to relate to it. And me going along with their goals and their initiatives and their utopias, and that doesn't make me feel closer to them. I think that's an issue with people idolizing even Hollywood. Now that's another story. I'm not going to touch it, but I think the keg and the bubble's about to burst in that regard. But I just say, and people idolize these stars, and at the end of the day, they're still just human beings. And sometimes, they have issues. They have things that they haven't worked through. So that people live through things, but they don't work through them. And so shout out to you, Cold War Jesus. Thank you so much for coming in. And Derek C. Williams, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in from the alleged birthplace of freedom. Thank you so much for coming in. Thanks for all that you do. Thank you so much for sharing that out, Derek C. Williams. That's absolutely golden of you. Thank you for all you do and all of your support. And I'm going to keep going here because I've only got a good 20 minutes left. But I knew this would happen. I knew this would happen. But worst case, if I have to come back today, I will come back today. So shout out to everybody in the stream. Rapper says, those leftists trashed another Jesus statue. Yikes. Okay, guys, I really appreciate it. So let me jump in here, and we're going to talk about Vernon Jones in just a second here. Thank you guys so much for coming in. And so, yes, we will come back to that. This is an article that's fully loaded. And of course, the World Economic Forum is always fully loaded as well. So, never short on that. Hi, Jeff B. How are you doing? CLC in Florida, I thank you so much for coming in. You're working. I really appreciate that. CLC, it's nice to see you. Chrysler says there are people of today just want to turn this into a Muslim country and do away with Christianity altogether. So nice of you guys to come in. I really appreciate you guys coming in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you to the next story, because I did this as a flash stream, but I think the information is beyond flash worthy. But I'll do my best to move on here. So you're into all these. We're into all these things. So what I want to do is I want to move on a bit to. I want to get into Texas today, but I want to save that. I had something special planned for you guys for Texas, and I might still be able to do it, but we'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop down to, let's go ahead and talk about Vernon Jones. If you guys aren't familiar with Vernon Jones, I covered Vernon Jones not too long ago. Vernon Jones happens to be I believe he's a House representative, and he was a Democrat, which he basically said he was throwing all of his support behind President Trump, and of course his constituents, and I'm sure his colleagues, I'm sure they all just, he was, then of course the tongue lashing and everything was all in full effect from him doing that. So we're going to go over to a story with Vernon Jones, and also Vernon Jones is also making some, I think he's on a committee. He's been appointed to some things that may help. I don't know how you guys feel about this particular technology, but I'll get to this. Make sure I get this one in. Thank you guys so much for coming in on this stream, and thank you for doing your due diligence by smashing that like or unlike button. And thanks so much for Derek C. Williams for sharing this out. And if you guys are watching a replay, I'm always happy to have you guys there. I appreciate your comments, your feedback, and keep an eye out for things. Yes, so let me just jump right into this, and then I'll take you to a couple of other clips that I have for you. So for this one, we're going to go to the vetted source, the TNA. The Georgia Democrat thanks Trump, criticizes Black Lives Matter and Biden. This is written by Warren Mass. Now, according to this article, Georgia State Representative Vernon Jones, he's Democrat of Lithonia, that's in the Atlanta area, visited the White House for a meeting with President Trump on July 13th, displaying his own brand of bipartisanship. While at the meeting, Jones thanked Trump for defending law and order and condemned what he described as the, quote, hypocritical, end quote, Black Lives Matter movement, insisting that all Black lives should matter, including the people that killed in the riots following the killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer. Quote, most people, including Black people, they want law enforcement to be out there enforcing the law. I think people just want them to be. People just want them to be. They want them to be fair, end quote. Jones said at the meeting with the president. Now, according to PJ Media, reported that Jones spoke of the tragic death of Sequoia Turner, an 8-year-old girl shot to death in Atlanta as her mother attempted to park near the Arby's where Rayshard Brooks had been shot by police after grabbing a police officer's taser and aiming it at the officer. Quote, he says, we lost a baby girl too in Atlanta, 8 years old, and it wasn't to a police officer. More people have died from the protest of BLM than prior to that, end quote, Jones insisted. Indeed, at least 22 people have died in the George Floyd riots. Quote, and so sometimes it's hypocritical, end quote, the Georgia Democrat continued. Quote, it's almost as if some Black lives matter, but all Black lives should matter, and all lives should matter. So I thank you, Mr. President, for what you are doing, and I stand in solidarity with you. On July 7th, Jones wrote in an opinion piece for the online Daily Caller, in which he stated that the plans to vote for Trump's reelection because, quote, unlike other Washington politicians, the president actually backed up his words with actions, end quote, that helped Black Americans. Quote, he signed an executive order on police reform, taking the steps to build a better bridge between law enforcement men and women and their communities, end quote. The Jones, who is Black, wrote, quote, the landmark executive order encourages police to implement best practices to protect the people they serve. It sets the highest professional standards for law enforcement officers while promoting peace and equality for all Americans, end quote. Okay. And so he kind of goes, he gives you a little bit of background here. I can finish this one out, and then I have a couple of clips for you. So in his column, Jones was critical of former vice president and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden for being, quote, absent in unifying this country, end quote, during former President Barack Obama's 8 years in office. Quote, the Black unemployment rate under Biden and Obama administration averaged a horrific 12.8%, end quote, Jones wrote. Quote, the number of Black Americans in poverty barely fell during the Obama administration, going down by just 145,000 over 8 years. By comparison, more than double that number, 350,000 Black Americans were lifted out of poverty during just the first 2 years of the Trump administration, end quote. Jones said Democrats such as Biden pander to Black Americans only, quote, during election years, end quote, despite being directly responsible for policies that have, quote, decimated, end quote, the Black community. Quote, Joe Biden has betrayed Black Americans throughout his career in Washington, end quote, he wrote. Now, to that end, I would like to take you to a bit of that conversation, some developments there. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. I really appreciate you guys for all that you do. And I'm going to take you to the clip. Once again, thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So we'll take you right over to a bit of the conversation and a bit of a demonstration that I have for you. Hope you guys are doing well going into your weekend. And I'd like to give a shout out to, for those of you that have not seen Uncle Tom, it is #1 on the IMDb platform. Now, this is it's a documentary. If I can be, I want to, give you, get the category right. All right, so we're going to go to a little bit of audio here, and then I'm going to take you to a demonstration. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.
Mr. President, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I, like many others, we support you in supporting our law enforcement officers and providing safe communities. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for being here as well, and your hard work. And obviously to the Attorney General Barr, thank you. And to the law enforcement officers that are here and their families, and to your staff, Mr. President. Although it shouldn't matter, Mr. President, I'm kind of a unique bird, if you will. I'm a Democrat. I'm an elected official. I'm African American. I have 8 years or 12 years of experience in the Georgia House of Representatives, 8 years as county exec. And as county exec, I've had to manage a very large, probably one of the largest police departments in the state of Georgia. I have 2 words. We need more funding for police officers, not less funding. And here's why I say that. When you look at law enforcement and the equipment, that's important for them because it's protect and save their lives as well as saving others' lives. But clearly more money is needed to buy less lethal enforcement types of tools like the bowler, what they call the bowler wrap.
Right.
So I thank you, Mr. President, for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I stand solidly with you.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn, and I will take you to a demonstration. Here you will see a demonstration and not Spider-Man.
Now, one. Just like we do in the field. One.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And what I meant, the reference there was that, that's the bolo wrap demonstration. Now, for those of you that were familiar with it before, I would imagine this is another method or something, I guess, a measure they're going to train with, another training device that they're going to use. I'm not sure. I've never seen a demonstration before, but I thought that might be helpful. So there again, there's some developments there on how to, I guess, to detain someone I'm not quite sure if they're already holding a gun. I'm not sure if that's going to help, but I would imagine they will assess the situation when it's necessary to detain someone or apprehend someone. So that is, there's your demonstration there. And then I had a couple of other, maybe one other clip for you guys. I really appreciate you guys for coming in, and I'm probably going to wrap up here in about 10 minutes. I'm going to give a shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena. Thank you so much for coming in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate you guys for making it out on such a short and a flash stream. Yes, but we have many things going on of course, across the country. We have lots of cultural things going on. We have lots of bad cultural things going on. Not when I say bad cultural things, we have unhealthy cultural things that are going on. I will say that. So I just shout out to Cold War Jesus, the rapper 10,000. And yeah, so if you can see, I think there's a few options. I'm thinking of Uncle Tom right away right now. If there's a way for you to get to see the Uncle Tom movie, I would strongly recommend it. It's in fact, I've even watched it a few times because I was a little distracted the first time that I watched it, but I think it's certainly it's a good movie, and I think it's probably even more important to have a hard copy. If you can get a hard copy, or if you can, I'm not sure how soon it'll be available to when it'll make it to other platforms. I guess maybe not iTunes, but iMovie or some of the other platforms where you can download it. I'm sure it'll be a fee for it at the time, but I hear you. The rapper, I think I don't know if you guys saw. I did a video the other day, and it was on. We're starting to see all of these. We're starting to see, the communist faction come out and support Joe Biden. So, this should give all Americans pause that we're heavily infiltrated at the top in the government. And then we have people with huge backgrounds for supporting, communism, as well as, terrorist, and in fact, I want to get into that, but I don't want to. I'm offering that on another segment. But you should just look behind and see who the supporters of. Just check out and see who the supporters of BLM. You'll find that interesting as well. I think Chicago has a huge. I think the protesters of Chicago are pretty much professionals, because they've been doing this in the Midwest and the sociology departments. They've been training for this, if I can say, takedown for years. And what they're engaging in is not what they're engaging in. There's nothing original about what they're doing. They're going around, they're gut checking capitalists, they're gut checking white Americans, and that's what they're doing. We're going to gut check white people, and who knows, you could be next. I would just recommend you just need to be prepared. Shout out to you. Thank you so much, Crazy Chick Sheena. And let's see. Chrysler says eventually it'll be out on Blu-ray. Hopefully. I've been limited to just watching it on the computer because there's an account. If there's a site, I think at one point they were offering you get 20% off or something on the 20% off on it on the movie. So, but I think it'll be worth. It'll be worth your time. And the rapper says they are paid protesters. Yes, they are. And they are, it's almost, they're everywhere. But the thing about it is that the thing about people that are big time organizers, where they're community organizers, I can applaud them for their efforts, because if you want to see change, if you want to see a change that's a change in a community, then you really have to start. You can start in the communities, like helping people, assisting people in getting registered to vote, or bringing education to these communities. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's, of course, that's not the type of organizing that they're referring to, but I'm saying these are the people that they want to plan your life. They want to plan your societies. They want to tell you what kind of schools your kids should go to. They want to tell you, they want to abolish prisons. They want to abolish everything that's not affecting them. But they'll be the first ones to call a cop if they see any of those people in their neighborhood. So it's what I call liberal supremacy, systemic liberalism. So yeah, it's pretty systemic. They wrote the book, so they would know how systemic it is, because they've been doing this for years. They've been doing this for decades. There's been all kinds of movements, revolutionaries against U.S. and U.S. values. BLM, it's an intersectionality kind of a movement. It's not just one agenda. When you look at it, it's not. They combine race, they combine class, they combine gender, they combine it all. And even that's a transformation from what it was in the 60s and 70s. I think they found that to be more expedient. It's more, they can strike more of a blow with more groups involved. And but I think the steam and the lid's coming off on that group. I don't know how. I would hate to see more lives lost. I really would, but what's it going to take is what I don't know. But once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate you guys for coming in at this 11th hour on this. But I'm saying, let's see. The rapper says majority of these intersectional leftists who hate America are these naive female cults. Yes, it is very much. The basis, when you think about the foundings of many of those groups back in the 60s, they started out, they were class, they were public, they were campus square, moved to the public square. They took it there, and they eventually became more violent. After MLK was killed, many of these groups became more violent after that. And of course, you had Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers. You had all of this evolution. These things happened in waves, and they go underground, and then they pop back up. So I would imagine they're going to pop back up again. So I really appreciate you guys. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. Thank you guys for coming in. But I have to go. If I can't, I may come back later. But I just want to share a few pieces with you guys. Keep your eyes open, your ears open. And yeah, I appreciate you guys for coming in. So make sure you do your due diligence and hit that like or unlike. If you're in replay, I really appreciate you guys for coming in. And yeah, I may see you later today. Maybe we might even do a moonlight streaming there. Sorry, there's my alarm. But I really appreciate it. Yes, they are very much against back in the day, that what they call was Eurocentric, that be, when blacks were, because the black family was much stronger, decades ago. And this rate of, the rate of, children born out of wedlock, those things were all very different, decades ago. But so I'm not surprised. It's just they just repackaged it in another way. So I really appreciate you guys for coming in. And yes, keep an eye on the community tab as well as the Patreon page, because I'm doing another series, an entirely different series on I'll be bringing some of it to this platform, but definitely bringing as much as I can I'll be bringing some over to the Patreon page. So I'm going to start that series probably this week, probably releasing some things this week. And then hopefully there will be some training opportunities exclusively available to you guys, the subscribers. And yeah, so hopefully you guys can join me for that. And some other things are coming to the channel. So once again, you guys have a great weekend. And I don't want to say stay safe because I think that's a little bit disingenuous, because we don't know. It's an invisible enemy that we're dealing with, right? So, but you guys know what you're doing. Once again, I thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I think I covered everything. With the time, I'm just short on time right now. Let's see. All right, you guys have a great rest of the day.